Hey everybody, tonight we're going to be discussing Isaiah 53 and what it really means. Does it talk about the Messiah, or is it simply the Messianic age and the details all around that? So sit tight, we're going to get kicked off here in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. Welcome to Tanakh Talk. I am your host, William Hall, broadcasting live out of Kingsland, Texas, USA, with episode number 62 of TNT, the Twisted New Testament, with Rabbi Stuart Federer. Rabbi, welcome back. It's a pleasure to see you here again. Give us a little finger dance before we turn this thing down. There it is. All right, there we go. Cool.
I don't know why that music moves me.
It's something that we just have to
that
do.
Funny language, you know.
It's a signature move, right? I mean, everybody's got their signature.
Yeah, right.
That's funny. Cool. All right, well, let's turn this music down all the way. Cool. I'm wondering if sometimes I notice that whenever I do a stream, hey, Chris, let me make sure no one in the house is actually using our internet, because it is really choking up right here. And hang on just a second. Let me make sure. Hang on just a second. Just want to make sure they're not streaming Netflix or something. Games or Netflix or anything like that? Huh? Oh, okay. Okay, cool, thanks. Just want to make sure. Okay.
How's our speed?
Okay, good. Okay, so, all right, so it looks like, we'll find out. It says it's asking connection problems. Maybe so. Give me some good feedback out there. It's good to see everybody in the house.
Yeah, can you hear us?
I can hear you. I can hear you for sure. That's good. Good evening, Rabbi William, Michael Faircloth, Carla, Delane. Let's see. Okay, so I guess we're doing okay. I paused my player just to make sure I'm not extracting any videos. So, yeah, only you people watching live know that we started late, thanks to me. Anyway, I was having computer setup problems. And,
well, thanks to both of us.
Well, actually, it took me longer than you, so you're not included in this. So. Anyway, so I'm just glad we're back, glad we're up and running here, so it's all good in the hood. So tonight, we are going to, I saw something on Facebook, and I really, really wished I could find it right now, but there's still so many people pushing the agenda of Isaiah 53, where, you know, and trying to prove that Jesus somehow, or Yeshua, in this particular case it would have been Yeshua, because it was a Messianic Christian who, Dr. Michael Brown, who was pushing that envelope. And I couldn't even comment. I was just thinking, this is like one of the oldest arguments, and I cannot believe that he's still using this. It's almost as crazy as Sid Roth, which is one of his partners in cahoots, using the whole part about he was pierced, and his hands were pierced, all this other stuff, and it's like, if you really go, was it Zechariah? I don't even know which I had to look for it, but just using it alone. Really, I don't know. It's suicidal in my opinion. If it was really that important to use Zechariah, is that where it's at? Where it talks about my hands have been pierced or whatever? Is that right? Okay, and so
it's you know how bad I am with numbers.
That's okay.
In this case, chapter and verses.
Yeah. So for someone like Sid Roth to even use that. And even the gospel writers didn't even go that far to try to extract that out. But that just doesn't make any sense, because if you read the entire context of the chapter, it's like, this is someone who was supposed to have this, someone who was a false prophet. Yeah. So, and so with Isaiah 53, of course that's a roll off in my opinion. If you are a Christian studier, that's a roll off or an extended domino falling of Isaiah 7:14, where it talks about the virgin shall be and conceive and have child, right? So because who else could this be but that virgin talked about, many chapters earlier. So and that's what we're going to address. So it doesn't have to be in any particular order, but I know you probably have a very very good approach method on that. So I'll let you lead the path.
I have a method, but I don't know. Look. there are two things that should be. I'm not sure we're going to tonight.
Okay.
But there are two things that should be discussed. Okay, when it comes to the whole Isaiah 53 thing.
Okay.
The first one is, can the passage be about Jesus? And the second characteristic is, okay, fine. If it's not about Jesus, who is it about?
Right.
Okay, and to really do the topic right, okay, you have to answer both.
Good.
Although I'm sorry, what?
I said good. Go ahead. I'm following you.
Well, I was going to say that I think that the most important thing to do is to be able to say to Christians when they try to tell us, let me rephrase that, when they try to tell us, okay, who our text is all about, I think the most important thing to be able to do is to say, it can't be Jesus. Right. It's not Jesus. It can't be Jesus. More importantly, by the way, than saying who is it really about.
Right.
It is easy to show both. Okay, I'm not saying it isn't easy to show both, but they're coming at us with, this is about their Jesus, and the quick off-the-cuff response, okay, is just simply, if it's supposed to be about your Jesus, then how come this, and this in the text? Mm-hmm. In which case they usually go, oh my God, I never saw that before.
Right, or justify it.
Okay.
Try to figure out a way to justify it.
Right. All right, so first of all, everybody talks about Isaiah 53. William, be my shill here. That means I'm asking you to intentionally make a mistake.
Okay.
But we know that Isaiah 53 isn't the place to begin.
Right.
So where would you say, be my shill, okay, give us the misinformation. Where would you say we're supposed to start the actual text regarding the servant that suffers for God?
Probably verse 5, because that's like the big whammy in Christianity. In fact, I don't think many people even... I'm sorry, I'm being the shell. Verse 5.
Of 53?
Yeah. Isaiah 53:5. That's the most popular
Bible
verse in all Christianity.
Then you misunderstood my question.
Okay.
Where would the whole passage begin?
Are you asking
They
me
don't say Isaiah 53:1. They say earlier than that. My question to you is, where do people generally say the passage quoted should actually begin?
Actually, I don't know. I know Isaiah 7:14, where the virgin is, they want to include all that to include that as Jesus. Is that kind of
right? No. Right. But so when it talks about Isaiah 52:1, awake, awake, put on your strength, O Zion, put on your beautiful garments, O Jerusalem, is that part of the suffering servant passage? Say no.
No.
Okay.
Thanks for making it easy on me.
So where would the suffering servant passage actually begin? In Isaiah, it is not 53, it's somewhere in Isaiah 52.
Okay. So, but I've never heard a Christian point back that far.
Oh, no, that's my point. Not Isaiah 52:1, but where would they normally point back to?
Well, I've never in my life heard someone even point to Isaiah 52 at all. They've always gone straight to Isaiah 53.
You've never had people say it begins with, behold, my servant shall deal prudently, shall be exalted and extolled, and be very high. As many were astonished at him, his vision was so marred, etc. They don't quote that?
Well, they may, but I have not been in a conversation with somebody where they have. But
wow.
Ideally,
Okay.
13 would be the ideal place, because that does look like it's a beginning of a paragraph / idea, if you want to say that. So.
Okay. Well, I am stunned because everybody that I know who talks about Isaiah 53 always says, but we don't start in 53. these are, artificial divisions not found in the text itself, and the real division should go back to Isaiah 52:13.
Gotcha.
Okay,
Right.
that's what most people say.
Okay.
Okay, and just what I want to cover quickly, okay, is how the text itself tells us that it's talking about the Jews, personified as the servant of God who suffers as a result that they are God's servant. The suffering servant is a servant who suffers because the servant serves God.
Okay.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Most 52:13 when they quote the whole section.
Gotcha.
Okay. All right.
By the way, just
Now,
an update. If you're watching the
Yeah.
YouTube chat, you'll find that they're asking about internet issues, and we are. But the good news is I'm recording this to the hard drive on my thing, and so what I'm recording will be a clean recording. So we'll continue on this. We just won't take any calls. We'll continue on this, and we'll probably fill out the hour discussing this like thoroughly. And then when we're done, I'll upload this copy that's actually I'm recording to my hard drive. I'll upload it directly to YouTube so that after the show, anybody watching after it will be able to see an uninterrupted video. Just letting everybody know now. So, all right, continue on, Rabbi.
Okay, so just real quickly, you have to ask the question. This is Isaiah speaking. This is Isaiah's the prophet we're quoting from. We're looking at it's Isaiah 53, not Joe Schmo 53. It's
Right.
Isaiah 53.
Okay.
So the first question off the bat is, when the missionaries come to you, is who was Isaiah preaching to? Who was he talking to? Who was he giving his message to? When he spoke for God, who did the message from God go to?
Don't ask me that question, because that's never something that's even discussed. They don't care who or what. They just know that's what they're taught. That is a messianic passage.
But when you
referring-
ask the question,
Right.
they have to come up with an answer.
right,
In other words, this isn't just out in space somewhere where Isaiah is just all of a sudden saying, "Hey, everybody, Jesus
Right.
is a servant who suffers for God."
right,
Isaiah didn't live. Start over. Isaiah lived 700 years before Jesus was born. To whom would his message been given? Who did he talk to? Who was he concerned with? Who did he care about? What group was his concern that he would bother preaching to them?
tell us. Jewish people would be the only answer.
Exactly. Thank you. The Jews.
Thanks, Chris.
Okay. Now take a look at Isaiah 52. Okay.
Okay.
Verse 13, where they all say it begins.
Okay. So, behold, my servant
Okay.
shall deal prudently. Pardon
He
me.
shall be whoever this is shall be exalted and extolled and be very high. But now take a look at 52:14, the very next verse.
Mm-hmm.
As many were astonished at you. The Hebrew is clearly you.
Okay.
Okay? The word is alecha in the original Hebrew. So that Isaiah, from the very beginning of his dissertation, from the very beginning of his PhD thesis, from the very beginning of this whole section on the suffering servant, okay, from the moment he's beginning, he says that many were astonished at you. He's talking to the Jews. Here he is telling everybody he's talking about them. He's talking about the Jews. He's talking about you, meaning the Jews to whom he is speaking. End of story. We're done. Now we know who he's talking about. He's talking about the Jewish people.
Right.
Well, it's that simple.
Right.
So if Isaiah himself says, as many were astonished at you, at the people to whom he was speaking, namely the Jews, the whole thing is about the Jews, okay, and not about Jesus.
Right.
And if they want to say, dual. What's it called? One prophecy, dual prophecy.
Duality.
Okay, well, then obviously, then we may as well be talking about a triple prophecy or a quadruple prophecy. If we're going to allow for a dual prophecy, why not triple, quadruple? What comes after 4, 5? Penta, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know how that works. Okay, you see my point?
I do. That's good. Okay, so
all right.
So let's just.
All right, so at first glance, we have to see that when Isaiah says he's talking, many were astonished at you. His visage, his appearance was so marred. He's talking to the Jewish people about the Jewish people.
Okay.
They were astonished at you. Namely, they were astonished at who? The Jewish people, and about whom he is personified in the singular. His visage was so marred more than any other man, and his form more than the sons of men, and goes on from there. Okay,
gotcha.
So, and the he to you, all this stuff, the, what's it called? What's that collection of grammar?
Oh, you're asking around
the pronouns.
Gotcha.
The pronouns. All the pronouns get mixed up. Okay, especially when it's Hebrew poetry, especially when it's prophets. But it's clear, as many were astonished at you. Now, there are many mistranslations of Isaiah 52:14, okay, where instead they've translated as many were astonished at him. His visage was so marred. But that's not what the Hebrew says. They're trying to correct the grammar. They're trying to make it uniform, that it's talking about third person him, his, as opposed to second person you. But the Hebrew is clearly second person lecha, to you.
Right.
Okay, that's one thing. All right?
Okay.
The next thing that we also get in the verse immediately preceding, and then again later, like 2 or 3 verses into Isaiah 53, is even though Isaiah is speaking the words, who is doing the speaking? It's like I can say out loud, and William Hall made the statement that, so I'm actually doing the talking, but I am talking about when William Hall spoke, right?
Okay, right.
Here it's the same thing.
Okay.
Okay, Isaiah is doing the talking, but the description he's giving is about some other entity or group doing the speaking. Like Isaiah speaking for them. Okay, Isaiah's quoting them, so to speak. You see what I'm saying?
I do, yep.
Okay, so Isaiah 52:15. So shall he, that's the suffering servant, sprinkle many nations. The kings shall shut their mouths at him. For that which had not been told them they shall see, and that which they had not heard they shall consider. And then in the 53, okay, now we're into the section which is, that Christians clearly will say is the suffering servant passage. And it's Isaiah 53:1. Who has believed our report, and to whom is the arm of the Lord revealed? Okay, so who's doing the talking?
It would be the kings.
I'm sorry?
The kings of the nations.
And how do we know that? How do we know for sure that when it says our report, or when it says to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed, that it's talking about the nations of the earth, and representing those nations of the earth, the kings on their behalf are speaking? How do we know?
Verse 15, it looks like that's kind of where it points it out.
First of all, 52:15, it explicitly says, so shall he, this suffering servant, sprinkle, whatever that means, many nations. The kings shall shut their mouths at him, for that which they have not been told them they shall see, and that which they have not heard they shall consider. That's one place. It immediately comes before 53:1. But there's another place on the page that when you show this to most missionaries, when they come to the Jewish people to try to convert them, okay, it's like they've never seen it before. It's like new to them. It's like they didn't even know it was on the same page. Okay, when in Isaiah 53:1 it says, who's believed our report, and to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? Just go to Isaiah 52, okay, and take a look at Isaiah 52:10.
Okay. The Lord hath made bare his holy arm in the eyes.
Holy arm in the eyes of all the nations. So when Isaiah 53:1 rhetorically asks, to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? Isaiah 52:10 has already given the answer.
Yeah. Everybody but to the only people except for the nations, which would be the Jewish people, nation of Israel.
No, he's bared the holy arm in the eyes of the non-Jewish nations.
Okay.
And every time the Hebrew in the biblical verses say the made bare his holy arm, it is usually God saving the Jews in front of the Gentile nations.
Okay.
So when it says Isaiah 52:10, the Eternal has made bare his holy arm in the eyes of all the nations, not the nation, namely the Jews, but the nations, plural, meaning the Goyim, the non-Jewish nations.
Oh, I see.
Okay. And all the ends of the earth shall see the salvation of our God. So everybody around the earth has seen the salvation of God because God bared his holy arm in front of all the nations. How? By saving the Jewish people.
Okay.
Which is why in Isaiah 53:1 it says, who's believed our report, and to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? It just said in 52:10, the non-Jewish nations.
Right, gotcha. Huh.
So now we know that Isaiah is speaking to the Jewish people. So his entire paragraph is about the Jews personified as the servant who suffers for being God's servant. And he's putting the words in the mouth of the nations. How do we know that? Because he says, to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? And just a few verses before that in 52:10, he said that the arm of the Lord has been revealed in the eyes of all the nations.
Right.
Okay.
Gotcha.
So
yeah,
now
I
we
never
know.
saw it before.
Now we know who is speaking, and now we know about whom he's speaking. It's the nations of the earth. It's the nations of the earth. Thank you. Who are talking about this suffering servant, and they're stunned at what they've seen, amazed at what they see. Mm-hmm. Who's believed it? Who could believe it? Okay.
Right.
And okay. So now,
just clarify real quick for the new Christian viewer out there, why the chapter beginning locations and the breaks are problematic in interpretation.
This is what I was talking about before. Mm-hmm. The breaks are weird because they were not put on there by the Jews.
Right.
Okay. The chapter and verses were not put on the verses by the Jews. They were put on the chapter and verses by Christians.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And they didn't necessarily understand the breaks, okay, and they didn't necessarily look at the Hebrew scrolls to see where the natural breaks were in terms of the printing. And I don't mean printing like printing press. I mean like, handwriting, the written verse.
Right.
Okay. And by and large, the Jews just went along with it because, okay, gee, what a good idea. We never thought of breaking it up into chapter and verses and numbering everything. Yeah, we'll just use theirs, more or less. Okay. And there's some disagreements, or not disagreements. There's some, differences, where a verse will be one or two off from how it is between the Hebrew and the Christian verses. Is that clear?
No. I was typing a response to
okay.
Sorry.
But if you go to Psalms, okay. If you go to Psalms, okay, a lot of translations will have like a numbering.
Oh, right,
okay?
Right.
Let's see. What's a good one? Let's that didn't do it. 96. That's one of my favorite ones. Let's try 130. Nope. See, now when I need it, I can't find it. But not all, like the Jewish will say Psalm 1 pick a number, 121. I'm making this up. Don't go look at 121.
Right.
But they'll say Psalm 121 verse 3, but in the Jewish division it'll be 121 verse 4.
Yeah, there'll be like
something
one
like
or two verses off.
that.
Right?
That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, gotcha.
So
Okay.
the whole idea of how to do this was not Jewish.
Okay. Right. That makes sense.
Okay. All right. By the way, this is real quick. I'm not trying to spend 4 hours, which we could easily, by the way,
right.
on just Isaiah 53, comparing it with Isaiah 7:14 and all that stuff. I'm just hitting what I call are the high points, namely to show Christians why Isaiah 53 simply could not be about their Jesus.
Right. Right.
Okay. So, and by the way, if you can pull it up real quick,
Sure.
take a look at Isaiah 43:10, please.
Okay.
There are no less than 9 verses throughout Isaiah as it approaches Isaiah 53, beginning with Isaiah 41:8. But don't go there right now. Don't waste the time.
43:9.
Okay, no less than 9 verses. Yeah, 43:10 is where I want you to go.
Okay.
Okay, but Isaiah 40. There are no less than 9 verses preceding Isaiah 53, leading up to Isaiah 53, where God explicitly says that the servant he's talking about is the people of Israel. That the people of Israel are personified as the servant. Okay, Isaiah 43:10, you have it?
It's up.
Okay. Isaiah 43:10, they'll say, wait a minute, Israel is a whole bunch of people, but servant is singular. Yeah, so what? A lot of times they played with numbers.
Right.
Okay, but Isaiah 43:10, in one verse, is referring to the Jewish people, both in the plural and in the singular. So that Isaiah 43:10 reads, you are my witnesses, saith the Eternal.
Oh, that's good.
And my servant, I'm sorry, what?
That's good. I like that. Nice. Good call.
And my servant, whom I have chosen. So witnesses in verse 43:10 of Isaiah is witnesses is plural, but in the exact same verse, it refers to the same Jewish people as servant, okay, which is singular. And notice that the singular word chosen to refer to the Jews is the same word servant that you find in Isaiah 53.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Okay. All right, next. Now it's just, you may say, oh, that's a little nitpicky, but even, look, if this is supposed to be the Holy Spirit working through Isaiah and telling people in advance that this is their Jesus, then it should be 100% pure and unadulterated.
Right.
But they got problems. So, for example, okay, twice in the text that we are looking at, Isaiah 52:14 and Isaiah 53:2. Okay, basically talk about what a really good-looking what a really good-looking guy, okay, this Jesus was.
Gotcha.
All right. Oops, no, sorry, messed up. They're saying that the servant in Isaiah 52:14 and Isaiah 53:2 is ugly.
Interesting.
Who wants to look at him?
Right.
He's terrible. Okay. Fooled you. Okay.
Right.
Isaiah 52:14. You have it up?
It's up.
His appearance was so marred beyond human semblance, and his form beyond that of the sons of men. His appearance was so marred.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Ugly man.
Now they could say
Take a
that
look
was
at
after he was flogged. That would be an excuse to use.
Oh, so he's flogged once, none of which does it say got onto his head. He had little pinholes from a crown of thorns, maybe.
Right.
Pinholes
right.
from the thorns. Okay. But he was beaten on his back. He was scourged on his back, not on his head.
Gotcha. Oh, yeah, right. Good point.
That's one thing. Second of all, look at Isaiah 53:2.
Okay. For he shall grow up before... Oh, yeah, this is good. Explain.
Isaiah 53... what did I just say?
53:2.
Isaiah 53...
For he shall grow up before him as a tender plant and a root.
He shall grow up before him as a tender plant, as a root out of a dry ground. He has no form or comeliness, And when we see him, there is no beauty that we should desire him.
Wow. Yeah.
So you have two verses now that talk about this suffering servant of God being ugly, having no that we would see him. There's no beauty that we would desire him. Have you ever seen any kind of picture or artist rendition of Jesus where he's portrayed to be an ugly man?
Never. Mm-mm.
Never. That's one thing. Second of all, there's a very important verse in the Gospel of Luke,
Okay.
which contradicts this explicitly regarding their Jesus. Take a look at Luke chapter 2, verse 52.
Okay. What's up?
And what does it say?
And Jesus increased
And
in wisdom
Jesus-
and stature and in favor
And
with
in
God.
stature and in favor with God and man.
Yep.
So if he increased in stature and in favor with God and man, to increase in stature, isn't that like statue? Isn't that like state? Isn't that like what you look like?
Nice.
Doesn't that therefore in Luke 2:52 contradict what we just read
Absolutely.
in the Isaiah passage that they want us to believe is about their Jesus?
Yeah, absolutely.
Isaiah 53, no beauty that we should desire him. Oh, wait. He increased in stature and in favor with God and man. Okay? So it contradicts the biblical, the Christian New Testament about Jesus contradicts the biblical Isaiah and the description Isaiah gives to this servant who suffers for his service to God. Okay, next one. Back to Isaiah 53.
Okay.
All right, 53:3.
Okay. It's up.
This is not talking about a person who once in his life gets rejected by people. This isn't talking about one person who at one point in his life gets the thumbs down by a governor or, one time in his life has a bunch of people pointing at him, making fun of him. When it says, verse 3, he is despised and rejected of men, a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief. Okay, and we hid, as it were, our faces from him. He was despised and we esteemed him not. This is talking about through his whole existence, through his whole life. Okay?
Yep.
So Isaiah says, he's despised and rejected of men, a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief, and we hid, as it were, our faces from him. He was despised and we esteemed him not.
That's insane.
So Isaiah is clearly talking about someone who's been rejected and scorned and pushed away and his whole life. How does this compare with the Christian description of Jesus? Take a look at Matthew 21:46.
Okay.
But when they tried to arrest him, they feared the multitudes because they held him to be a prophet.
Yep.
Not only that, this is what the point they arrested him, but even when they were just about to crucify him, they're on the way to the place where they did the crucifixion. The multitudes are following him and weeping and wailing. Take a look at Luke 23, verses 26 and 27.
How you coming up with all this stuff so quick and on the fly?
Well, believe me, it's not because I have it memorized. You know how bad I am with chapter, verse, and all this stuff. It's because I have my cheat sheet.
Well, I'm glad you've got it because this is a lot deeper than I ever thought it would be, and this is good. This is what we want to see.
This is just, look, William, as we said when we first began this, okay, we're not even touching the surface of what needs to be said about the Christian misinterpretation of Isaiah 53.
True.
I am just showing quickly it was about the Jews according to Isaiah himself, okay, and the text itself of Isaiah 53 contradicts how Jesus is described in the New Testament itself.
Right.
I'm just saying it can't be Jesus. Okay, you can go hours on just this.
Right, right.
It's probably the single most referenced Christian proof text in the entire Tanakh is Isaiah 53. Okay, look, you've seen the back of my car, you know what it looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, with all my Jewish bumper stickers and looks like chrome but made out of plastic Star of David.
Right.
Okay, I've even taught Introduction to Judaism at Houston Baptist University and never had so much as a pamphlet put on my car. Okay, but I was at one place with my daughter. We came out, and lo and behold, there was a pamphlet on my car, okay, which of course was Isaiah 53, and they included the Hebrew because they're assuming that Jews are stupid and
funny.
don't know the Hebrew, and so they're going to supply the English. But if you, with the Hebrew right there and the English translation they gave, you got the Hebrew to compare with the English, and you see that their English translation is terrible.
Right.
It's terrible.
Right.
Okay. All right. So at any rate, Luke 23, 26 to 27. You have it up?
Luke 23, 26, and 27 is on screen.
And as they led him away, they seized one Simon of Cyrene, who was coming in from the country, and laid on him the cross to carry it behind Jesus. And there followed him a great multitude of the people and of women who bewailed and lamented him. Does that sound like someone who was despised and rejected by men?
Not even close.
Does it sound like someone, who, what was the rest of it? Yeah. Despised and rejected by men is the point. No, because it's not talking about one time one person gets, despised and rejected. Every human being on planet Earth could fulfill this one verse. Because at some point in our lives, somebody will despise us and somebody will reject us.
Right.
It's not talking about one time, one person, one place. It's talking about whoever the servant is, which is the whole. Do you know there's not a country in Europe that did not at one point exile its Jews, its Jewish citizens? And some countries kicked the Jews out not just once but a few times over the course of the last 1,000 years. Okay.
It's despised.
So the idea that Jesus was one time despised and one time rejected by men, therefore he fulfills this, is nonsense, because it's talking about a whole history of having been despised and rejected by men.
Right.
But Jesus in the New Testament, Matthew 21:46, Luke 23:26-27, all the way up until his crucifixion, he's got the multitudes following him, weeping and bewailing him. And if you want the quick list, take a look at Mark chapter 14, verses 1 and 2, Matthew chapter 4, verse 24 and 25, Matthew chapter 1, verses 9 and verse 11, Luke chapter 4, verses 14 to 15, Luke chapter 7, verses 11, 12, and 16, Luke chapter 8, verses 4, 19, and 45, and the Gospel of John chapter 12, verse 11, and also verse 42. Okay. All right. Next one. Okay. Go back to Isaiah 53, this time verse 7.
Okay. Got it.
Okay. Like a lamb that is led to the slaughter, and like a sheep that before its shears is dumb, so he opened not his mouth. And Isaiah 53:9 reads, and there was no deceit in his mouth. So first, like before its shears a sheep is dumb, so was Jesus the lamb. Wrong. And there was no deceit in his mouth. So at one place he's keeping silent, he's being dumb, and another place when he speaks there's no deceit in his mouth. Really? Take a look at John chapter 18.
Okay. What verse?
22 to 23.
Okay. Got it.
Jesus is before the high priest. Okay. I don't want to get into this, but he's basically, I forgot the question. What comes before that?
Right. Well,
Okay.
he was supposed to not have been. He's supposed to be like a lamb to the slaughter, didn't open his mouth, and here he is,
Right.
rebutting the priest.
Right.
Or
Rebutting the
whoever.
Well,
I'm sorry.
yes. Okay. So the text reads, John 18:22-23. And when he, Jesus, had said this, one of the officers standing by struck Jesus with his hand, saying, "Is that how you answer the high priest?" Jesus answered him, "If I have spoken wrongly, bear witness to the wrong. But if I have spoken rightly, why do you strike me?" So if he's trying to say, "Why'd you hit me?" justify it, he's not before his shearers being dumb.
Right. Right.
He's actually rebuking the man for striking him.
Defending himself.
So before his shearers, Jesus was not dumb.
Right.
Second thing, Isaiah 53:9 said, "And there was no deceit in his mouth." Would you say that a hypocrite is deceitful?
Of course.
Telling other people to do what he himself doesn't do? Exactly.
Okay.
Well, here, Jesus is, in John, he's struck with, the officer struck Jesus with his hand, but it's pretty clear in the other translations, okay, that Jesus gets slapped. And his answer, his response to being slapped is, "If I've spoken wrong, why did you strike me? But if I've spoken rightly, no, if I've spoken wrong, tell me what I did that was wrong. But if I've spoken rightly, why'd you strike me?" Excuse me, but aren't you, isn't like the whole world familiar with Jesus saying, if someone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to him the left?
Right.
And here, if Jesus is struck with one hand, how come he doesn't, okay, hit me on this side too? Instead, he rebukes the man for hitting him.
Right.
That's called hypocrisy.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, that's saying, okay, again, the whole point is showing that Jesus himself, according to the Christian's New Testament itself, doesn't fit the description found in Isaiah 53.
And
Okay?
Yep.
Christians will say, "Oh, he didn't defend himself." Well, first of all, he just did defend himself. And if you take a look at Matthew 26:25, okay, Matthew 26:25,
Got it.
this is the Last Supper. Okay, Judas, who betrayed, "I, Master," Jesus said to him, "You have said so." So we know that Judas betrayed him. When Judas asks Jesus, "Is it I, Master?" meaning, am I the one who's going to betray you? Jesus' response is to the positive, and he said, quote, "You have said so." Now take a look a chapter later in Matthew 27:11.
Okay. Got it.
Now Jesus stood before the governor, and the governor asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Jesus said, "You have said so." Christians will say, "Oh, that's so clever. He's not answering, but he's answering." Well, no, excuse me, but in the previous chapter we saw that, quote, "You have said so," end of quote, is a answer to the positive to a question presented to him.
Right.
So here, when Jesus is asked, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Jesus' response is, "Yes, I am."
Right.
Because his response, "You have said so," is the same answer he gave to Judas
Right. Good point.
when Judas asked, "Am I the one who's going to be betraying you?"
Okay.
Okay. So, again, over and over we are showing that the Isaiah 53 passage talks about a person, and that person is contradicted by the image created in the narrative in the New Testament about Jesus. One more. Okay?
Okay.
One more. This is Isaiah 53:9. We're going to spend some time here.
Good.
Okay. First of all, number one, first and foremost, Isaiah 53:9. Just at first glance, just the first thing you see when you look at Isaiah 53:9. You got it up?
That's up. Oh, let me put it on the screen.
Although he had done no violence. Right?
Okay.
Okay.
That's the
He
second
was cut
half.
out of the land.
Right.
I'm sorry, what?
That would be 9B, technically.
Right. Oh, no, we'll get to A.
Okay.
Because more than anything, I got to tell you a funny story about this one.
Okay.
But although he had done no violence, Okay. Do you realize how incredibly violent a man Jesus was?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. He was incredibly violent. Matthew 21:12.
Driving out the people out of the courts.
You better believe it.
Yeah.
Matthew 21:12.
Matthew 21 and 12. Got it. Jesus went into the
And
temple
Jesus
of God and cast out all
and
them that sold and bought in the temple, and overthrew the tables and money changers.
and the
I'm
seats of those
sorry.
who sold pigeons.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I've just
Now look,
that's
really,
tough.
really quickly, if we wanted to bother,
Mm-hmm.
okay, you can go to Deuteronomy 14 verses 24 to 26, and we would see that God himself tells the Jews that when you cannot bring your sacrifice all the way to the temple because it's too far for you, this is Deuteronomy 14, 24 to 26,
Mm-hmm.
wherever you live, turn your sacrifice into money, then go to the place I will show you, which is clearly means the temple in Jerusalem. Okay. Take the money, okay, and turn it into whatever you want to sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
Now, right there, it tells us two things. If I'm in a foreign land and I am too far away as a result of being in a foreign land, and I want to sacrifice a cow, I'm not going to take the whole cow with me.
Right.
I'm going to sell the cow, take the money, but the money I'm getting in my own home country isn't the kind of money they use in Israel, in Jerusalem,
Right.
in the temple. Okay? So that means I have to do, first of all, change the money from my country's money to this temple money. Okay, by the way, if you take a look through, it's Leviticus, I know, I'm pretty sure it might even be in Exodus, but it talks about, the text of the Torah goes out of its way to talk about the temple weight, according to the temple weight, which means that the temple weight might have been slightly different. Like, you know how gold is, a pound of gold does not weigh the same as a pound of pickles?
Right.
Okay, because a pound of gold is a different number of ounces. Okay, you know what I'm talking about?
I do. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the point is the temple is the same thing. So it keeps saying the temple weight, the temple weight, the temple weight. That means when you go to the temple from whatever country you're coming from, change the money with a money changer, okay, and change it to the temple's money, the temple silver, the temple weight, okay? Then, still at the temple, you go buy the kind of cow you were originally going to sacrifice and go have your sacrifice and your festival meal. That's Deuteronomy 14, 24 to 26.
Right.
Okay? So when he starts cleaning up the temple, he's actually denying what God commanded be there. He's defying God by getting rid of what God himself said. You need money changers and you need people selling the sacrifices. Okay, that was quick. Now take a look at John chapter 2, verse 15.
Okay.
It's basically the same story, but according to John.
Okay.
You get a much more bloodthirsty Jesus.
Got it. So.
Okay, a much more violent Jesus. Because John chapter 2, verse 15, and he made a scourge of cords and cast all out of the temple, both the sheep and the oxen, and he poured out the changers' money and overthrew their tables. So here in John, it's not that he's just tipping over tables and running around. It's that he made a whip to beat people with.
Right. Right.
So John chapter 2 makes him an even more violent person. But there's even more than that. Okay? You know the where Jesus in Mark 11 walks near a tree of figs.
Oh, yeah, right.
A fig tree. Okay? And even though it wasn't the season for figs, Jesus curses the tree because it didn't have figs for him to eat. What a nice guy. And the tree shrivels up and dies, even though it wasn't the tree's fault for not having figs, because the text explicitly reads it wasn't the season for figs.
True.
And yet Isaiah is talking about, although he had done no violence, Jesus was a very violent man.
That's interesting. Wow. Yep.
Okay, there's another passage, and I don't remember where it is because I didn't write it down. Okay, it's not in my collection, but I'm sure you're going to, as long as you've been with me, did you need script, which means paper money to buy things with? Did you need anything? And everybody says no. And Jesus says, then I tell you one thing you need now, go get a sword.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, right.
That's a violent thing to do. That's not going to be said by somebody who had done no violence.
That's interesting, too, yeah, for sure.
So the first glance, without even thinking about anything else, Isaiah 53:9 is another indication of someone who fell into trouble even though he hadn't done any violence. Jesus did violence in the temple, uncalled for, because the money changers and sellers of sacrifices were supposed to be there according to Deuteronomy 14:24-26. That's one thing. Okay. But Jesus himself is a very violent man. So again, the New Testament portrays a Jesus that contradicts what we're supposed to find from Isaiah 53.
Right, right.
But now let's take a look. Let me tell you a very quick story. I think this is hysterical.
Okay.
I'm sure the Christian church I spoke at didn't. Okay. But William, every so often I get asked to speak to a church. And this was a church. It felt like it was halfway between me and you on the other side of Austin. But this was in off of I-10, west of
San Antonio.
What's it called? East of San Antonio.
Gotcha.
Okay, but west of Houston, like halfway in between or something.
Gotcha.
Okay, and I went to the church. And all I did for 2.5 hours was answer their questions. Answer question after question. Finally, somebody got around to Isaiah 53. Okay, the first thing I did, of course, was to point out the Isaiah 52 passage, which we've already spoken about, and that is the where Isaiah is speaking to you, plural.
Right.
Okay. To speaking to you, meaning the people of Israel, not to a him. Okay, and it was as many were astonished at you.
Right.
The second thing I did was I told them, take a look at Isaiah 53:9. It's the only response I gave them. Okay, it's the only response I gave them. I said, who is Isaiah speaking to? The Jews. He's talking about the Jews because he says, as many were astonished at you. So it's all about the Jews. This we know from the text itself. But then I asked the following question. I said, Isaiah 53:9, how does it read? And every one of the translations they had there read exactly the way we have in King James.
Okay.
And every single solitary translation I've seen does it exactly the same way. And it reads, you have Isaiah 53:9, the whole thing up?
Yes.
And he made his grave with the wicked and with the rich in his death.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Yep.
I pointed out very quickly that the word is deaths.
Plural.
Okay? Anybody who's got any knowledge at all of Hebrew grammar would take a look at this and know that the word is deaths, plural. And that means for Jesus to fulfill this, he has to come back a second time and die a second time.
Interesting.
Plural.
Right.
Okay, that's one thing. Okay, but that's not as funny as the next thing I told them. I said to them, let me know who was Jesus crucified with. Who was Jesus crucified with? Who were the other on the other two crosses?
They were not rich people.
Exactly.
Right.
They were thieves.
They were the opposite happened to them. Right.
Exactly. In other words, whoever wrote the New Testament had a vague understanding of Isaiah, but when he was inventing the story about Jesus, got the two details mixed.
Right. Right.
The text reads, he made his grave with the wicked. But the New Testament said his grave was in a rich man's burial.
Right.
A rich man's grave.
Right.
Okay. And when it says he was with the rich in his death, no, he was with the wicked in his death.
Right, exactly.
Because they were thieves on the other cross. So instead of making his grave with the wicked, he made his grave with the rich. And instead of being with the rich in his death, he was with the wicked in his death.
Right.
Oops.
Big oops.
Big oops there.
Big oops, yeah, for sure.
Right.
Wow.
And as soon as I said this and they realized the truth of what I was saying, the whole place went dead silent. And you could see their minds working and realizing that the text was wrong.
Nice.
It really was nice. It was just the whole issue. I didn't have to go into details. I didn't have to go into translations. I didn't have to do any of that. All I had to do was point this one thing out: grave with the rich instead of grave with the wicked. With the rich in his death, no, he was with the wicked in his death.
Right, right.
And it stopped the conversation completely.
Interesting.
That was it.
Very
The
nice. Very nice.
All right. Now, I've been looking at my notes and looking at everything else. I have no earthly idea how long we've been on.
That's okay. 55 minutes. We got just enough to cover the last part of 53.9. 53.9b.
Wait a minute.
Because he had done no violence, and neither was any deceit
right.
in his mouth.
Right, which we covered already.
Actually, there's one aspect we did not cover, at least in this show anyway, and that is Zephaniah 3:13.
Zephaniah
3:13. Yep.
Zephaniah 3:13.
Yes.
Remnant of Israel shall not do iniquity, nor speak lies, neither shall a deceitful tongue be found in their mouth, for they shall feed and lie down, and none shall make them afraid. Gee, that sounds a lot like the person they're describing in Isaiah 53.
Sounds almost identical. It's a verbatim, just
and
about.
it explicitly says the remnant of Israel.
Right.
Right. By the way, if you really wanted another one.
Yes, we do.
Okay. Isaiah 53:10.
Okay.
A little bit more complicated to explain.
Okay.
But it says, he shall see his offspring, he shall prolong his days.
Yeah. Right.
Okay. And they'll say, ooh, offspring means disciples. No, it doesn't.
Right. Zerah is physical, right?
Exactly. The word is seed. It means offspring, progeny, descendants,
Right.
Okay. And he shall prolong his days means he lives to a ripe old age.
Right.
Guess what?
None of it happened.
Jesus was none of the above.
None of it happened. Unbelievable.
And if you want to see how seed is explicitly used to mean biological descendants, take a look at Genesis 15, 2-4.
Okay. Oops.
If you, okay, go to it. Doesn't matter.
Okay.
Abraham is, saying, hey, I need a kid. You promised me somebody would inherit the covenant. Somebody would inherit from me. And now all I've got is this Ben of my house, this son of my house. And son, actually, Ben, you could interpret to mean disciples. Okay? That's not that hard. Except it doesn't say that. What it says is, and Abram said, see to me you have given no seed, no zerah, no biological child, and all I have is the son, the Ben of my house, is my heir, namely this Eliezer of Damascus, his servant.
Okay.
But God comes in verse 4 and says, suddenly the word of God came to Abraham, saying, that one will not inherit you, none but him that shall come forth from within your bowels shall be your heir. Which means direct bloodline descendant, which is what Zara, seed, comes from. Okay. So again and again and again and again, the description that the New Testament gives of Jesus does not match the description that Isaiah himself gives about the Jewish people in Isaiah 53. It's that simple.
Right.
And again, you can spend hours and hours and hours going over every single detail, and there are plenty of them. Okay, there are plenty of them. But from my perspective, they're the ones who have to prove a biblical passage is about their Jesus, and if their description of their Jesus in their New Testament contradicts our Bible, they're out of luck.
Right. Sounds like we could almost do another hour on another week.
We could do hours and hours.
No, I mean just on Isaiah 7. I mean the way you dissected this one and the way we going over 7, because it's like people say, well, it's just 1 point. No, there's like 50 points within like 10 verses. All these variable things are completely wrong. having these available for people to see in one clean video shoot. I love that. That's good. So maybe we can pull that off sometime.
Absolutely, William. By the way, I just thought I'd tell you in light of Isaiah 7:14.
Yes.
The real Messiah is going to be my father. No, if they can say, Isaiah 7:14,
Yeah,
where
right.
Ahaz lived 700 years before Jesus.
Yep.
Okay, then I can say eventually my dad's going to come back and be the Messiah.
Right. You
Who's
sure
to
could.
say he's not?
Yeah. Yeah.
If one so much later fulfills Isaiah 7, then one. Just
insane. Kidding. That's true. I mean, the thing is, it could be, like you said, a duality prophecy. Why not 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10? You know.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Why not?
Yep.
And by the way, okay, if you're going to ask me, well, if there's dual prophecy with Isaiah 7:14, why not triple prophecy? Ever heard of a guy named Perseus?
Mm-hmm.
Whose human mother was Danae, whose father god was Zeus.
Right.
Where Zeus makes Danae pregnant without benefit of sex, so it's a virgin-like birth. I mean, maybe that was the third fulfillment of Isaiah 7:14.
Right.
Where Isaiah 7:14 is 1, Perseus would have come first. Perseus is 2, and Jesus would be 3.
Right.
Yeah, but at any rate, we'll get to that when we get there.
Interesting. Well, it has been, I can't believe how thorough this video has been.
It wasn't even thorough. I'm telling
it was
you, it was
very
hours at this.
This is very detailed, and I love it. I love it. There's more points brought out in this thing tonight than I even knew was there, and I knew there was a lot of problems. I just didn't see all of them.
Yeah, you don't fool me. You knew all this stuff.
Oh, no.
I'm telling you, for everybody out there, everybody's got their own little article, their own little, whatever on Isaiah 53.
Very true.
But every so often they come out with something, so we got to come out with something.
There you go. Well, folks, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time, next week, same time, same place. Maybe with Isaiah 7:14, with the virgin prophecy, so to speak. Maybe that's what we'll do. We'll spend an hour on it next week. We'll see. So you guys have a great week. Rabbi, you have a great week too, and we'll see you guys
later.
All right, shalom. Take care, everybody.
חשוב מכל חשוב והכרחי להיות ביחד. איפוק זו העוצמה, ויתור זו הגדולה, השאיפה והכמיהה. חושבים דוברים לובשים בכל האופנים, זה טבעם של אנשים שונים. נזכור בסוף כולנו שותפים, חשוב תמיד להיות אנושיים. לובשים